One of the most common things I hear from music makers is that I have no problem coming up with the ideas, but I just can't finish them. For many music makers, including myself, generating ideas is fairly straightforward. However, when it comes to organizing those ideas into a finished track, it often feels overwhelming, leading us to panic and give up. Let's look at a few things you can do to actually help you finish tracks. A common method for modern music producers to generate ideas is by creating a loop and gradually adding layers. This usually involves looping a section of the track and building parts on top of it. It's a great way to come up with ideas that fit well together. But the downside is that what sounds good in a loop doesn't always translate smoothly into a full song arrangement. From my experience, when I start arranging, many of the ideas I develop in the loop just don't fit. I end up writing new parts or removing pieces that no longer work together in the overall track. For example, in this track that I made for a client, if I compare the different versions of the session, you'll see that in version 1 and 2, I had written a bunch of loops, but they weren't really working. So, by version 3, I had actually scrapped most of the parts and rewritten almost everything in the arrangement. It was actually a fun way to approach the song. In the end, the only things I kept from the first two versions were the drum beat and the bass line. So I laid out the drum patterns in a rough song structure and started adding other parts one by one, not necessarily starting from the beginning. Instead of stacking layers in a loop, I spread them across the entire song structure. This gave me a much clearer idea of how different elements would flow into each other, and it felt a lot more freeing in terms of creativity. Once you have a structure or an idea down, it's really easy to finish the song, I found. So next time you find yourself stuck in a loop or unable to finish a song, just take the core ideas, spread them across your playlist, and create a rough structure. Then start working towards finishing the whole thing. If you follow the guideline I just mentioned, you might find yourself asking two questions at this point. How do you come up with a structure? Or what structure should you follow when making a song? And how do I know if my song is done? To answer the first question, the best solution I found when I don't have a specific structure in mind is to get it from my favorite songs by the artist I like. I use markers in my DAW to note down the structure, and once I do that, I start filling it in. Now you have the structure and also the core ideas laid down. But how do you know that if the song is done? It can be tough to know when a track is actually finished. Music software makes it far too easy to endlessly tinker and never feel completely satisfied. But eventually, you have to decide if it's done. One way I like to tell if a track is finished is to render the track out and play through the track from beginning till the end, just listening. If in a single listen, nothing immediately jumps out at me as an obvious thing to change or add, then the song is probably done. If I do notice something obvious, I'll make a note of it in my phone and keep listening. After listening to the whole track, I'll go back and fix the things I noted and repeat the process one more time. Eventually, I'll listen through and there will be nothing left to change, and that's when I know the song is finished. Sometimes I will also compare the track to a reference song, which can also help confirm that it's finished. It's also helpful to take a short break before the final listen to reset your ears. The more you practice, the better you will get at finishing tracks. Don't worry if you are not happy with your first few attempts, it's normal. Just keep going, and with each track you complete, you'll improve.